Baby babu. Babu.
Huh?
That was 100% correct scientific depiction of how you feel when people ask you questions with no context before your morning coffee. Believe me, that's science. So, what was this all about? Communication. We do it in real life, we do it in programming. So, let's think about it for a while. At some point of our lives, we all meet the person who thinks it's amazing an idea to put 2 hours long meeting for the whole team just to clarify results of the previous one. Of course, we all love these people, but I bet you don't want to be one of them. Office memes say this meeting could have been an email. But how? How would you do that? What are the rules? Let me speak up my thoughts on the point. So, I got a list. Provide the context before you ask a question. Avoid ambiguous terms, or at least clarify them. Make sure you are at the same page with the person. And recheck this one sometimes. Choose appropriate communication style, synchronous or asynchronous. How to choose? Ask. What the fluff is synchronous and asynchronous? Let me explain. But don't forget about 0 point. Make sure the person is available. Or even if the person exists. Because in big corporations, sometimes the person just not in the company anymore, like for 2 years, and people still trying to communicate with them. So, yeah. Well, what is synchronous and asynchronous? Imagine a conversation of 5 people. If anyone can just leave the conversation and do something like have some tea or play with a cat, and then come back later and still be able to keep up with others without interrupting them, that is asynchronous type of communication. Otherwise, this is synchronous one. Which one most people would prefer? Not sure. I'm leaving this question open. Well, this asynchronous stuff sounds good in theory, but how would you do it in practice? Is it even possible in real life? We can try to find out. So, let's talk abstract for a while. How do async systems work in general? Well, usually what we need to make asynchrony work, we need to split our system into several independent modules. and each module should be able to perform some job on its own, if given enough information or enough input. So we have our module, and that means we need some rules to describe how to communicate with each module, how to ask it to do a job, and what context to provide so the module is able to do its job correctly. We may call all this stuff input. And also, we want to have some rules about result of the work of module. So what to expect and in what form. And this is called output. So we just need to know what input is required for our module to start a job and complete it successfully. And we want to know what output to expect from the module. So we need those rules. Well, that's good enough. But in case if you ask a module to do a job, but your input isn't sufficient or invalid, the module should tell you that work cannot be done because it's not enough information to start, and if possible, it should provide details about what exactly should be fixed or clarified. So you can fix your input and make another, hopefully valid, request. So those rules may be unique for each module, or some modules can just use the same rules in communication. So you can have just many modules, and each of them may have their own rules or reuse existing ones. So far, so good. Another important part of the process is the way how you deliver requests to the modules. If we imagine that our module is a person, we may have several options how to give them a request. The first one option is face-to-face, and the second one by phone. So just call them. And the third one by text message of any type, like email, chat, or pigeon mail, anything, just by text. And there are even more ways how to do this, but let's not overcomplicate things and just take a closer look on these three options listed. So let's take a closer look. We have our actors. So it's a person who wants the job done, and we have our module. So in our case, those are people. So the first point, face-to-face. While the first option is a valid way to communicate, it's not truly a synchronous one. Because one of the strengths of asynchronous communication is ability to scale. That means that efficiency of the system in communication should not depend too much on number of modules you communicate with. So sending 100 requests should be approximately as easy as send 10 or 2 requests. And face-to-face method does not look very scalable in my opinion, especially if the modules are people and those people work from home or live in different countries, especially if there are many people. So what about the second one? The second one, just call. It's easier than previous one, so it's kind of more scalable. But if we take a closer look at this one, we may find out it's just a face-to-face method in a rubbish disguise. So it's still pretty much synchronous one. And the third one, just send a message. This dude is real asynchronous one. You can write many messages independently, and people can read those messages also independently. No need to speak in person, no need to synchronize. And it's easier and cheaper to write 100 messages than make 100 calls. You can even hire an assistant. So assistant can write some messages on your behalf. Or you can hire a team and no one will notice. The protocol, the rules of your communication will be pretty much the same. But remember, to make it work well, we need our modules to be independent, and we should use communication rules. Otherwise, you risk to drown in a swamp of pointless and endless communications and conversations where you just clarify everything but do nothing useful in fact. So, the third one is a good one. But should we always use asynchronous communication from now on? I don't think so. It has its strengths, such as scalability, ability to work at convenient time, and freedom to decide the order of your tasks. And as a bonus point for introverts, no need to speak with people in person. But it comes at a cost. Asynchronous style requires high level of independence from our modules. And to be independent, we need a sufficient level of expertise. Otherwise, if a big number of clarifications required every time, it may become very slow. So, for example, if you are new to the work and you need constant guidance, asynchronous may not be an option for you, just for now. And another problem with asynchrony is it may be slower for small tasks. So sometimes solving the problem requires expertise of many people. And while it's possible to do so in a synchronous way, and we have many real life examples of this, one of them like Wikipedia, but small tasks, for small tasks, it may become too slow. When you just have small task which you can solve in like 30 minutes in just regular way, in synchronous way, when you try to apply asynchronous solution, asynchronous type to this task, it may become like days. So that's another point to consider and to keep in mind. On the other hand, synchronous communication gives us ability to interchange ideas in real time, brainstorm, teach, solve problems together. So synchronous is like regular in-person communication usually, or something like this. So, ability to interchange ideas. And also, it suits better for personal conversations when emotions and presence are important. Also, it may be very fast at small scale, so you can solve small problems here and now. And that's also an important point. But it has its cons. It requires personal presence and constant focus. It can be really stressful, especially if you work in synchronous way for long periods of time. It is inefficient at scale. So if you have bigger team or several teams or many or even several companies and they need to interact with each other and communicate, synchronous way is not very good at this scale. So yeah, and what is important for people, it prevents you from creating your own convenient work schedule. And usually it forces schedules like 9 to 5 and overtimes and all this stuff. So it looks like neither approach is ideal. So what should we do? We need to combine them. So find out what are your goals. Check pros and cons, discuss them with your team, and choose what suits better for your particular situation. For example, if work-life balance is your priority, then try to build an asynchronous process in your team. It may be slower sometimes, but it's less stressful and more flexible overall. If you need to teach someone, or your team works on something innovative or unfamiliar and a lot of brainstorming and mutual efforts are required, pick the synchronous one. So, yeah, something like this. But what's important here, be honest to yourself and to your team. Select your goals carefully and without pressure. Otherwise, your shiny new process will meet a silent sabotage, I guess. In case your process is not for people, but for automated systems, exact quantity for big and small may vary. So 1,000 requests a day is not a big number anymore for automated system. And even millions of requests may be processed synchronously just fine. But this one is for another video. And lastly, communicate your expectations clearly using words, not hints. Don't just walk around sighing deeply and waiting until someone gets your hint. Not everyone can or should do that. Just tell, please. And also, try to use empathy and patience with others. Explain things and walk through your thinking process if that helps to achieve mutual understanding. And it doesn't matter whether you manager, whether you are boss or employee, or it doesn't matter. Your position, your status, your level, it doesn't matter. Just be kind, be a good person, and use your empathy and be patient. Especially be patient for newcomers, for junior employees, because we often tend to underestimate our experience. And if I have 10 years of experience, it might be possible to forget how how I how I felt and how much time I spent on those tasks. So just try to be empathetic, try to be kind. It's important part of communication as well. So if we rework my initial list, it may look like this in summary. Be clear, be honest, be honest with your team, be honest to yourself, and not overestimate your abilities, and try to constantly communicate and have healthy dialogue with your team. So just check, just recheck, and ask people, do they like your process, or do they, is it comfortable one for them or not? And it may fix a lot of problems. So be honest. Agree for communication rules and follow them. So it may be in different flavors. Communication rules is about many things. And in abstract way, it's like input and output. But when we work with programs, it's fine. But when we work with people, this input stuff and all this stuff, it becomes a bit different. So some people just don't like to speak in the morning, and they just need some time to start up their day, to read some emails, and just to clear their mind and tune to working atmosphere and to working environment. So just let them do this. And each person has their own rules, their own things they prefer to do, and just ask, just communicate this stuff, and try to get it, try to understand, and try to follow all the stuff. It might be really useful. Use synchronous and asynchronous approaches, as we told before, when appropriate, and combine them if required. So no need to use just synchronous or just asynchronous. The most probably you won't be able to use completely synchronous or completely asynchronous approach. Usually you need to combine them. And don't just choose it yourself. Try to have some communication, some dialogue with your team, with your people, and decide together what is better for your team. And it will be very efficient, and more efficient than just to force people to do whatever you think is correct. So yeah, that's why we have the last one, Use patience and empathy. Remember to be human. Remember to be kind, even at your work, especially at your work. And if you student, and if you have your teacher or mentor, or you are a teacher or mentor, just try to understand another person, try to communicate, try to ask what is preferable, what they like or what they dislike. Just have some feedback and provide feedback, and try to tune your communication to the point at which everyone will feel comfortable enough. So use patience and empathy. So yeah, I guess that's it for now about communication. And I hope you find this useful or interesting list. If so, please like and subscribe. And as always, good luck